computer. Okay, we have that little button up top, so life is good. Okay, so we are fixing our mess up and moving on forward. Hey, what is today? There are actually people that actually came to class twice. These people are amazing. And then zooming in again. So we're going to fix it. We're going to move on. And then what we're going to make happen is, let me give you some tips. Some of you were not super duper on your anatomy. You've got to jump in and know your anatomy without a doubt. So that should be free money points. Also, with your type 1 and type 2, I want you to refer back to how the test was set up. When we talk about muscle fiber types, we use them as Roman numerals. So you're either going to do a 1, like a 1, but it's not a number 1. And then when you do a 2, it's almost like 2 capitalized beside each other. So use kind of the Roman numeral setup. Okay? Don't do a number 1. Don't do a number 2, just like the instructions said. It should look like this. TYPE 1 or TYPE 2. Okay? For people on the board. Okay? This should be the format. And it said that in your directions, and I even put them in bold. So, but I went back and corrected all those. So if so again, but your grade doesn't matter. I've already gone in and set that entire column up in gradebook to resemble a big worth 0 points. So it should have just been a life lesson. Some of you didn't even go in and take it, which that was like a free money thing to go in and see it the first time to kind of see what the format was going to be like. I am going to change the format to where you will be able to go back to some of your other questions, going back and forth. I know I made it really kind of hard in the beginning, but we're going to move forward. My expectations are great. Y'all are going to do this. So today we are going back to that first part of chapter 3 with bioenergetics. So as it all starts from the very beginning, as we talk about your metabolism. And so you have to remember that your metabolism is just the transfer of energy in your body, and it's all a big balance of caloric intake and caloric expenditure. Okay, so how your body is actually burning and utilizing fuel from day to day. Okay, utilizing energy. And when we talk about catabolic reactions, and remember, the more of y'all that talk, the more fun this goes. Okay, when we talk about catabolic reactions, I'm in the left-hand column of page 44. What are catabolic reactions? Going from big to small, large to small. So when we talk about the process of muscle development, do we want catabolic muscles? No, absolutely not. When we talk about the process of digestion, is digestion a fabulous catabolic reaction in your body? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, so then when we talk about anabolism, we talk about small to big. Very nice. In the shape of muscles, awesome or terrible? Awesome. Again, just think about that. When we start talking about hormones, we're going to really talk about more anabolic and catabolic reactions in our body as we move around through things. Okay? So remember, we talk about one of the first things as we start to move into the 3 different energy systems. Now, let's go ahead and do a quick review, and this is going to even take you back to the end of chapter 1 with actin, myosin, sliding filament, all of that stuff. Okay, so over here, and what I'm going to do this time for my online viewers, and I'm going to take a picture of this diagram and send it to you in the feed so that you're not really seeing it at such an angle. And what I tell you, let's take a chill. I don't know why I didn't think about doing this. Hey Shelby, we're just moving desks. Just ignore us. And back just a little bit. All right. Hey, look at Shelby hydrating. I see you. I see you, girl. All right. So all of a sudden, whenever we're going to have an actin and a myosin contraction, starting off at resting, going to contraction, going to recharge, going to all of those phases, excitation coupling, all of those. Y'all know them in order. What starts the whole thing? Calcium. Okay, calcium gets excited and does what? Again, gets the tropes rolling. Okay, and then all of a sudden, what happens next? You got it. Okay, all of a sudden, we have to, after this excitation coupling, all of a sudden we end up with ATP. And then after that contraction, remember this, all of a sudden this phosphagen ion gets lost. Okay, and then it converts into ADP. And in just a minute, we're going to really sort of complete the loop about how this goes on again. Now, when we're talking about the phosphagen system, we actually see ATP stimulating a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Now, on your test, if you put capital A, capital C, capital E, I'll count it right. Say, got it when you got it. Awesome. So now, what acetylcholine does is it has the opportunity to stimulate what we call muscle twitch. Okay. Now, once muscle twitch is established, we actually see, come with me, jumping over into the phosphagen system, we see that whenever we start to make something happen, we see that the primary fuel after twitch, let's go back a second. Let's talk about twitch. After we establish twitch, a couple things happen. We actually see either type 1, I'm going to go ahead and do this in a lowercase, just so we're all. So we start to see type 1 fibers. We actually call these slow. I hate that, but y'all know how I roll. Okay, so we see slow twitch fibers starting to work and starting to rock. Work with me, Shelby. I'm trying to continue to make all of this happen. Chords. Okay, so after we see slow twitch, y'all give me some characteristics of slow twitch fibers. Come on, you're smart people. What? Okay. What's this entire system called on this left side of the line? Oxidative system, yes. Excellent. This is the oxidative system. Okay? Tons and tons of red blood cells. Why does it have tons of red blood cells? You said the main word. Fatigue resistant. Okay, remember, we have to have a ton of red blood cells. That's a repeat there, sorry. We have to have a ton of red blood cells because what do we need a ton of? We need a ton of oxygen to keep this process going and going and going and going. What did we refer to this side as? No. What's the analogy? Energizer bunny. Okay. Exactly. Keep going and going and going. Okay. So now we stimulated. We're going to stimulate. We're going to put type 2 over here. Okay. The most explosive of the is type 2X. Okay. What did we say we're going to think about? This is our vertical jump. This is our 40. Okay. This is the most explosive there is of all of them. Say got it when you got it. Now, remember, whenever you burn a fuel, you get a byproduct. Okay, so what is the primary fuel in the phosphagen system? Fuel. Yeah. Yes, it's ATP. ATP is the primary fuel. Okay? Now, I'm getting different colors here. All right. So green is the fuel. Okay? Now, whenever I burn anything, I get a byproduct. Remember the analogy of building a fire? And then all of a sudden, what do I have left the next day? Okay, what do I have left? I have ashes. But in this case, whenever I burn ATP, I get creatine phosphate. Okay, so this is my byproduct. Okay, now here's when it comes back together. What does this creatine phosphate allow me to do? Reload ADP into ATP. So again, this creatine phosphate, and we're going to put it up here, allows that to come together and make that happen. Shelby, does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, so all of a sudden, this is what happens next. Now, think about this. Let's talk about maximum power percentage. What percentage range does the phosphagen system work in? 90 to 100%. Okay? Now, basically, how long does that system last? 0 to 6 seconds. Okay. Now, all of these things come to play. Also, one thing to remember is every single time that you start any activity, you always start in the phosphagen system. Okay? Now, what happens when you run out of ATP? You're dead. So now remember, one of the cool things about ATP is it is quick to empty, but it is also quick to fill. The analogy of the bucket going underneath the waterfall. Okay? What would happen if it took a long time for your ATP stores to refill? You would what? What happens when you run out of ATP? You die. Okay? So again, keep remembering this. This is the, okay, right here. And if you'll look on that upper right-hand column on page 46, remember, this is called, you guys, the mass action and the mass effect. Okay? The action, you guys, here's the thing. Whenever you do the action, it dumps your ATP stores. Okay? That's the action. That's all of a sudden the giant vertical jump. Okay? Now, the awesome effect of that is it will all of a sudden fill back up. Action, effect. Action, effect. Vertical jump, recover. That's the way that goes. Say, got it when you got it?
Got it.
Awesome. And here's what's so beautiful about your body. It really likes for this to be an equilibrium reaction. It doesn't want you to all of a sudden run out of ATP. Your body doesn't want you to die. Thank goodness. Say amen. Amen. Okay. Now remember, I'm also going to continually have you refer to that chart on page 54 because it is such a clear picture of what we have going on with stuff. Now, I will say that it has 5 energy systems listed in there. I want you to really think about it more in 4 terms, like I'm guiding you through it. Okay? And I know your maximum percentages are not listed in there, so I want you to use the percentages that I am giving you on our illustration. So got it?
Got it.
Awesome. So now, the next thing that happens is, are there going to be events that I need to do that last longer than 0 to 6 seconds? Yes or no? Yes. So all of a sudden, since my body is really not wanting to use ATP for that, ATP is like dynamite. It's an explosion. So here's the thing, your body wants to find a different energy source. And in finding a different energy source, it has to shift gears to our second main energy system, okay? And that next one is glycolysis. Okay, what kind of people are you? Smart people. What is the primary fuel? The word is hidden in there. What is the main fuel? Glycogen. Okay, so when I burn glycogen, okay, all of a sudden I get what? Say it, Malik. Pyruvate. P-Y-R-U-V-A-T-E. Okay. Now here's the thing with pyruvate, and I said this before. You guys, this is just sort of the middleman. Okay? It's the drug dealer. It's the middleman. Okay? Gets it from the main drug lord, middleman, going to the consumer so that the consumer can do something with it. Is that a good analogy? Okay. So again, the pyruvate is simply the middleman. Now, what happens next is pyruvate passes the drugs to lactate. Okay, so what I want you, and some of you missed this question, okay? Some of you answered on the question where it said, what is the end product of glycolysis? Remember, some of you put pyruvate. Is that the end product? No, lactate. I will say that someone put hydrogen, and I gave you, was it you, Jamie? Okay. Someone put hydrogen, and I did give that person credit because the direction that we're moving in a moment. But this is what we're calling the end product of glycolysis. Okay, so remember, this is what I am. Let's go back to our color coding. This is what I am burning is glycogen, okay? The end product that I end up with is lactate. They got it when you got it. Now, two things start to happen depending on the intensity, not duration. Because remember, you can do something for a long time and you're really not expending a lot of intensity. They got it when you got it. All right, so now, this is whenever we take two different paths. Okay, here we have what we're going to call slow glycolysis. Okay, why are we going to call, what's it closer to? It's closer to the type 1 fibers, okay? So it's going to be able to go a little bit longer. Let's all of a sudden, we're calling this fast glycolysis. Glycolysis. Okay, now, let me tell you, go to page 54. Okay, and again, these are numbers that I am providing for you. Okay, now, here, fast glycolysis is typically going to go from 80 to 90%. Okay, and you guys, our time frame on this one is, I need orange. You guys, because remember, I got to pick up with 6 here. Okay, so it's going to be basically 6 to 30 seconds. So that's my intensity, and that is my duration. So let's talk about what an example would be of that.
As close to the type 2?
Yeah.
Would it be like a 100-meter dash?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like 100 meter. Okay, I'm going to go back to black. Okay, a great example of this is like a 100-meter run. Okay, that is a perfect example. Now, here's what we do know. Think about it from this perspective, and many of you, because your book says it, and that showed me that you were reading your book, whenever I ask you about boxing, y'all put both, and I completely get that answer. Here's what we have to know. You are going to go and go and go and go through those rounds of boxing, which means there has to be that level of aerobic endurance. Okay, the beautiful part about this is where the power has to come, where you deliver a punch. Okay, so that's why it's really that mix of two. Kind of the same thing with basketball. Did I have tennis as one of them?
Yeah, rowing, for sure, not basketball.
Okay, rowing is type 1 for sure.
Okay.
You go and you go and you go and you go. There aren't many rowing events that are really less than 3 minutes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to keep delivering that force. Okay, and you can't deliver that kind of intensity for that long of duration with rowing. Okay, and one of the sports, I can't remember. I didn't use tennis. Don't remember tennis. Okay, one of them was one that obviously had to have some type 2 in it. Okay, and whether it was boxing, maybe I had you are going to use all of these different fibers. But remember, to be terrific, you must be specific. Okay, you have to be specific and trained. Powerlifting was one of them. Powerlifting, where's that? That's which system? That's total phosphagen system. Because how long does it take you to deliver a power clean? Did you say 30?
No, 30.
Oh, okay. I was like, you're doing a 30-second power clean? Okay. Again, I was like, boy, you're defying. I was like, you need some coaching on form. Stay after class and I'll coach on how to do a power clean. Yeah, that's what he's saying. I thought he said 30 seconds, not 3. And I thought he was doing a.
You can't hold the weight like that.
Okay, not cool. So again, this would be your power clean and your strength training right there. Okay, now a couple of things start to take place. If your intensity level is still this high, you are all of a sudden going to do something, God bless you, where you reach your what? Lactate threshold. Okay, exactly. It happens to coincide with the same place as your VO2 max. Now, is this the place of hearts, rainbows, and sunshine? No. What is this a place of? Yeah, crime scene, death, decay, all of these things. Firing guns. If it can be as bad as it can be, it can. Now, here's what we know. We know that this end product that accumulates right here also starts to change something in your body. It starts to change a chemical, and remember, everything is chemistry. It starts to make positively charged I'm going to do those in a different color. Okay? It starts to make positively charged hydrogen ions gather at this crime scene. Okay? So you have all of these hydrogen ions that are gathering right here at the lactate threshold. Okay. So what we know is when someone has really reached their lactate threshold, where their body can only either decrease intensity or quit, okay? We know that they are truly done. And again, I just told you, what are the two options when someone gets their lactate threshold? They have to do what? Decrease intensity or quit, okay? And here's the thing. Remember, I put don't
Sorry.
Okay? Don't quit before you're done. Now, as we train athletes to be more efficient and effective, okay, we are trying to delay our OBLA. We want to delay this as long as possible, because the more efficient and effective that I can make my athlete at buffering off hydrogen ions, the higher intensity then they can go. End of story. They can make that happen. Okay. Now, so let's just say that my sport is still pretty powerful, okay, but it's a little bit less intensity, but I can go a little longer, okay? So this is when we start to talk about slow glycolysis. And let's get all the basics on that. So we need to do a percentage. So what I'm looking for in slow glycolysis is 70 to 80% of your maximum intensity. Okay, now tell me what kind of people you are. Smart people. So now I know that this can basically go anywhere, because remember, we're picking up here with 30 seconds. So we can actually go anywhere from 30 seconds, really kind of up to that 3-minute window. Now, this lactate can take care of you pretty long. It really can. But then something else has to happen as we get towards that 2 to 3 minute mark. And what we see happening is we see lactate coming down here and funneling through what? The mitochondria. Okay, this is called the Krebs Cycle. Okay, so the lactate can pick up just a little bit more, and it's actually starting to pick up just a few oxygen ions, okay? And as it funnels through there, it's able to not have to completely downshift to another source of fuel. So as that takes place, it lets you go a little bit longer. But then where do you eventually end up back? You eventually end up back at your lactate threshold. But if your training program has been great, even over here, you're still going to be able to OBLA, which is what? Onset blood lactate accumulation. Okay? And you always want to delay your OBLA. Delay OBLA. Delay OBLA. Drill it into your brain. Okay? Again, the more that I can do this, the more efficient and effective my athlete is. Okay, so remember, what was our example that we kind of talked out of the box on this? Okay, remember that, yeah, boxing would be okay with that. But again, we do have a little bit more endurance factor. I do personally think that boxing kind of lives over here, basically because of the 3-minute rounds, and you do sort of have some time to recover, but you also really dig into your glycogen store. So there does have to be a little bit of there, because remember, we talk about glycogen over here on the oxidative side as well. You guys, this is the 200 meters. That's a hard race. That is a really, really hard race to make happen. Okay, any questions right here as it comes? Shelby, any questions? Awesome. Okay, so now let me double check my notes to be sure I covered everything. Can y'all think of anything? Oh, I do know something that I want to talk about. Okay, I want to talk about the places where your body stores glycogen in 2 places. Very good. Okay. Basically, which of the glycogen stores are you using on type 2 fibers? You're basically using muscle glycogen over here, and you're digging into your liver glycogen over here. Now, how about an R there? How about your live glycogen? Okay, so again, it's stored in 2 places. As a matter of fact, let's just kind of move this. Just for 100, we're drawing such a pretty picture. Okay, let me erase that. Oh, wrong color. I'm being kind of ADHD today because I messed up so bad. I want to do it perfect now. So that's where you're using your muscle glycogen. You're using your liver glycogen on the other side of the line. Okay, is that all looking familiar to everyone? Everyone rocking, everybody rolling? So got it when you got it? All right. So now we start to think about the way our body moves through the oxidative system. Now, oxidative systems, we start to talk about that on page, where's glycolysis? Lactate threshold, we covered all that. Delay OBLA, oxygen uptake, we got this. All right, so oxidative system, just so you know, starts on page 51. All right, now let's talk about our primary fuel sources in the oxidative system. What do we want to be our fuel as all this comes together? We already know that glycogen is one of them. Glycogen and fat. That's what we want to be our main storage. Now, here's what we know. I'm going to keep doing this. What do we want as our main stores, our main sources? Okay. Now, what do we not want to ever be a source of fuel anywhere? We don't want muscle or protein. Okay. For the sake of testing, so that it's all correct, let's all use the word protein. That is a question on the test. I know it is. Okay, and I'm going to do this. We don't ever want to use protein as a fuel source. Say got it when you got it. Now, here's what we know. Whenever you do use protein as a fuel source, you end up in this terrible thing called gluconeogenesis. Okay, do you remember me talking about this being a dirty fuel source? It is not efficient or effective to burn protein. But here's what your body does. If your body gets in a freak out situation, it is going to always try to burn glycogen. But can you run out of glycogen? Yes, you can. And then when you run out of glycogen, it's going to try to use protein. Because what is it trying to save? What's it trying to save as a, what's it trying to save? It's trying to save fat. Because you know what? How long can you live on your fat? A long, long, long time. Remember how we talked about there's basically an unlimited source of fat, even in people that are very lean. Okay, so now remind me, there is a special enzyme that has to be released to be able to throw fat or lipids into the bloodstream. Who remembers? Lipase. Okay, and so whenever we have lipase released into the system, it's typically a natural act that goes on. Now, what we know in people that are endomorphs or have been obese, are obese, and have extra storage, your body doesn't like to do that as efficiently or effectively. It just does not for some reason. So again, we're trying to figure out in the lab how to either recreate lipase for people to take or a way to increase these lipase levels. What we know is once your lipase gets jacked up, it's pretty much jacked up the rest of your life, which is why your body always remembers its fattest. It just will. And unless you are constantly monitoring the amount of hey, what kind of people are you? Okay, here's the whole thing. If my liver and my muscles are always filled with glycogen, what am I going to use as the storage? Glycogen. Okay, so if I'm always burning glycogen and I haven't practiced or trained to do what it feels like to run out of glycogen and be okay, my body is not going to want to burn body fat. So here's what we do know. If you decrease the amount of carbohydrates that you consume, you can increase lipase. Okay, because, okay, so to burn lipase,
I have a question.
Shelby, what's up?
So the new diet now is the keto diet, which is a lot like that. So when they first started, a lot of people say that they have the keto flu. Would that be the reason? Because their body's not used to burning the fat?
You hit the nail on the head. And here's what we know. If all of a sudden we transitioned from a fuel source that is easy to burn and readily available, again, the first default mechanism is protein. It really is. If all of a sudden you start starving yourself because your body's freaked out, it's going to go with protein because it's trying to save you from yourself. So in this attempt to be better, more efficient and effective at burning body fat, we have to decrease carbohydrate intake. And you know what, you guys, you do not feel particularly awesome when you do that. As a matter of fact, you know, I tell people, you might kind of end up getting the blues when all of a sudden you really try to teach your body to burn fat. Because burning fat is hard. And I know that sounds crazy, but think about it. If burning fat was super easy and super efficient, would there be any fat people? No, there really wouldn't be. Now, what we do know is that once your intensity goes down, which by the way, we didn't label this with an actual intensity. You guys, do you remember what this was? Remember, we have to come down here.
70%.
Okay, 70% or even lower than 70%. Okay, now here's what we know. If the intensity is lower and you have taught yourself to burn fat, how long can you go? No. Think about it. If you have taught your body to make the shift to go to fat because you haven't freaked it out, I'm glycogen dependent. How long can your body really go on fat?
Forever.
It really can energize or bunny all the way all the way, all the way. Because we got lots of stores. Remember, the body only stores, and this is a rough estimate, friends. So remember this. And again, this is going to depend on different size bodies because my liver and muscles are different sizes than anyone else. So if I am completely glycogen loaded, even between my liver and my muscles, I probably only store, I wish I had one more color. Okay, so let's go back with the brown. Okay, whenever you talk about muscle and liver glycogen, I'm going to sort of put this right here. Okay, because remember, it crosses the line. It really does. And so what we know is, you guys, this is actually called the Krebs cycle right here, where it circulates energy between the muscle and the liver just a little bit better. Okay, so what we know is that if we can train the body to not freak out when we run out of glycogen and we say, hey, trust me, we can burn fat and we can go forever without sacrificing muscle or protein. It's a beautiful thing. So remember, we only store basically about 2,000 calories of glycogen in our body. Because when we run out of glycogen, our body gets scared. One of the things that we say in my running thing is, we say that an athlete has bonked or hit the wall when they run out of what? When they run out of glycogen without supplementation. So here's the thing, if you take a marathon runner and you all of a sudden, and a lot of marathon runners do this, and I used to do it because I used to not know how to burn fat, okay? You see those little goo packets, you see all of those jelly beans, you see people that are doing long-term endurance events, and they're having to eat stuff while they're doing it. What are they trying to keep filled? They're trying to keep glycogen filled so that they don't bonk and hit the wall. But since I have made this shift now, after the shift happens, once you can burn fat, again, you can keep going. But in the meantime, from here to here, Shelby, that's where they call that the flu. And you feel like poo. Okay? You feel lethargic, you have a headache, you feel foggy, you don't feel like you're on your game. But then all of a sudden, once you shift to here, you really can start to live on fat for a super long time. And here's the good, the bad, and the ugly with that is, I'm not real proud of what I'm about to say because it kind of goes against some things that I have recommended. Because I'm dealing with an injury, I'm really trying to watch my protein intake because I don't want to put myself in a situation. But here's what's awesome about once you get to burning fat, we'll continue to put this up here, the Energizer Bunny. Okay, once you continue to know how to burn fat, you guys, because of my day, I had 160 calorie protein shake at 7 o'clock this morning. I've had water, and here's the sad part, I'm really not even hungry. Because what am I rocking on right now? I'm rocking on fat stores. I'm mentally clear, I am checked in, my stomach's not growling, and all that. On the flip side, I'm behind on protein consumption because I'm trying to heal. So that's not good. But what we know here is this is very efficient at keeping you satisfied with things. Okay? It really is a beautiful thing. And what we know is for people that are endomorphs, that really have a hard time managing body fat, if you take someone who is needing to decrease body fat and you feed them a low calorie, low fat diet that is loaded with carbohydrates, two things will happen, or a lot of things will happen, okay? They will never burn that body fat because they'll always be burning what? Glycogen, because you're telling them to consume all this glycogen, even though it's low calories. So you're putting them in a situation to do two things: to stay fat and get type 2 diabetes because of the excess carbohydrate consumption. Does that all make sense? Shelby, does that make sense? Did that answer your sort of keto flu? Now, I will say that I don't think that keto is for everyone, and I don't think doing keto the rest of your life is for everyone. I sort of believe in a process called carb cycling, to where on the days that I work out the hardest, I do really consume a few more grams of carbohydrate or a little bit more glycogen. And also, I really believe that your body needs change. You know, it can become so efficient at only doing one thing that it doesn't really do it anymore. The same thing to think about. What would happen if you only bench press 180 the rest of your life? Would you ever get stronger? No. Your body would just get used to 180. So that's all that it would do. That's why we have to continually mess with our workouts. We have to be sure that we are going heavier, going lighter, going longer, going stronger, all of these things. And remember this, if I take a type 2 athlete and train them like a type 1 athlete, what am I doing to their force production? Decreasing it. But now, here's what's interesting. What if I take my type 1 athlete and I occasionally have them train over here like a type 2 athlete? What am I doing? Increasing speed, increasing force production. So taking a type 1 athlete and training them like a type 2 athlete a couple times a week is awesome. But what's so sad is lots of times old school thinking is still telling type 1 coaches to only train them like type 1 athletes. Yes, Sarah.
Okay, so when I ran cross country, our coach had us running sprints every day. And that was our only life. We ran sprints 4 days a week and we did distance 1 day a week. And it was for cross country.
Here's what I'll say. I would not have trouble at all with your coach having you move powerfully 3 days a week, but having you move the distance of your sport 2 days a week. Okay? Because remember, when you take a sport that is lower intensity but longer duration, you have the increased risk of this athlete becoming catabolic. So therefore, I need to have their body be efficient and effective at, were y'all competing at the 2 mile or the 5K? 3.1?
Some of us were doing the 2 and some of us were doing the 3.
Okay, so what I need to know is, for this cross-country runner, if they're running the 2 mile, I never need to train them past 2.2 miles. Because if I take them too far, I'm losing their ability to move fast. You know, the world of endurance athletes is changing, thank God. Okay, one of the things that used to be prevalent is, say someone's training for a half marathon, 13.1 miles. They really used to train 16 miles. That's just not smart, because as your distance goes on, typically your force production is going to go down. If you're going to be a competitive half marathon runner, you guys, I was running my absolute fastest qualifying for New York, qualifying for Boston, when I was only training for a fast 10-mile run. I didn't want to overtrain. You guys, I did 1 5-mile run a week, 1 10-mile run a week, and the rest of the time I did HIIT training because I wanted to increase force production. Now, I will say there is some benefit to performing at the distance that you will be competing. It's a mental. But I'll say if you're going to run a marathon that's 26.2 miles, you don't ever need to run training farther than 20 miles because you guys, if you can mentally get to 20, you can endurance get to 26 if you're doing 2 things. You're either replenishing glycogen or what? You've taught your body how to burn the most efficient fuel source ever. Okay? You have taught your body how to do this. Okay? And again, I kind of hate that this is a frown by fat. Okay? Because during the flu phase, that's whenever you feel bad during that transition. But once you can get to fat burning, it actually is, oh, look, I'm better than ever. Okay, I am better than ever. You guys, I used to be a glycogen dependent distance runner. And guess what? I was fatter and slower. Okay, I was eating just like that pyramid was, 65, because I was told that there's no way I could ever let my glycogen stores. Okay, now here's the caveat. If we were to do a blood draw during this phase of exercise on my athlete, there is going to be a little bit of fat trickling in, just because, but not enough to sustain if the presence of glycogen is dependent. It's interesting how this new, yes, this is all new way of thinking about becoming fat dependent by consuming a lower diet of carbohydrates. There are some people that don't think there's enough hardcore science to prove this. So what we say is we have a lot of anecdotal evidence. My experience, for example, is anecdotal evidence. Okay? Now, you can look at the proof of my training protocol, my speed of running, and my body fat. I think that those things don't lie. Now, there are some people that would say that you must have glycogen or carbohydrates for energy. That's sort of what we've always been taught, is that carbohydrates and glycogen are the only energy source. It definitely is an energy source, but once you have trained your body to be more fat dependent instead of solely glycogen dependent, you can do this. It used to be pretty bad news to end up not burning fat. Okay, you need me? Cash. Okay. Hey, I'm going to put this on pause so that I'm not recording. Hey, I think this is it. I really think this is it. Okay, so I'm definitely going to upload this in the next, you guys, sometimes it takes about 30 minutes to get it uploaded. Okay, God bless you all. You'll do awesome on the test tomorrow. Love you.